Hello, everyone. Welcome to Kudlow. I'm Larry Kudlow. So, there they go again. The they is Team Biden. The again is another round of massive regulatory increases that will cost millions of hard-hat, blue-collar, construction-type jobs. And it's going to prevent any new energy pipelines, probably any new utilities, probably virtually stop the construction of new or extended bridges, highways, and tunnels. That's right. The move will significantly raise environmental reviews of all these infrastructure-type projects, completely reversing one of Donald Trump's best policy reforms, which streamlined NEPA, that's the National Environment Policy Act, streamlined the permits and the timetables. And I'll tell you, this issue is very dear to my heart because President Trump's infrastructure reforms were developed in our White House National Economic Council, where I work closely with my great friends Andrew Ullman and Francis Brooke. It used to take 7 years or 10 years, even 15 years to get a new building permit through the executive branch. Trump brought that down to 1 or 2 years, and he took out excessive and unscientific radical enviro approval layers. That's how he did it. One of the wonderful things about this new Biden environmental review is that despite the fact the application of dubious new environmental standards, which will cut across numerous executive agencies and therefore cause a huge stall in project decisions, the wonderful thing is the Bidens, with a straight face, are arguing that this will actually reduce regulations. Let me quote, "Restoring these basic community safeguards will provide regulatory certainty, reduce conflict, and help ensure projects get built right the first time." That, according to White House Council on Environmental Quality Chair Brenda Mallory. Notice, folks, she didn't say projects would get built on time. She said projects will get built right the first time. But the first time may take forever. And the first time may even be never. By the way, this executive order makes a mockery of the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. It was passed with Republican votes last fall. Only about 10% of the $1.2 trillion would have gone to bridges, roads, and tunnels anyway. But the Biden executive overreach could shrink those projects to nothing. Now, here's a few of the add-ons that are supposed to result in less red tape. First of all, the new Enviro Impact Statement will include a so-called cumulative impact on existing or new projects. Cumulative. That could go back a century. It could go forward a century. And there is no way to measure it. This is the reappearance of the radical left climate idea of the social cost of carbon. Back a century, forward a century. Upstream producers and or downstream users. You think anybody could figure that out and measure it accurately? Come on. They're just ginning up a high social carbon cost that will lead them to reject any new infrastructure projects. And incidentally, besides the word cumulative, these new regs that are supposed to cut red tape, got it? New regs, cut red tape, got it? Huh? Anyway, they will also include direct and indirect impacts on the environment, direct and indirect. And these multiple new enviro reviews include the Endangered Species Act, the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, along with the Enviro Impact Statements. This really makes a mockery of the infrastructure legislation that came up with one federal decision policy, which was a good idea. Why? Because all these new impacts from carbon, birds, remember birds? Remember the lesser male prairie chicken endangered species flap that endangered the entire Permian Basin oil and gas reservoir? Anyway, you add up all this stuff. For heaven's sakes, we mustn't forget the EPA, which is chock full of Biden radicals now. And you'll need sign-offs for water, air, the Federal Highway Administration inside the Transportation Department that is supposed to make these decisions will never be able to make them because all these project reviews cover so many agencies that it will literally take forever. Let's add that the new rules specify that any new projects, and that includes, let's say, a widening of a clogged highway somewhere in a high-growth red state, or any new construction expansion that was so-called unplanned, whatever unplanned means. If it's unplanned, it will be put to the bottom of the pile of the administrator's inbox. I'm not making this up. This is specified in the fine print, trust me. And then finally, of course, this being the Bidens, there will be special attention to so-called disadvantaged communities and underrepresented groups. Now, their new rule supposedly reconnects these disadvantaged communities and underrepresented groups. But if you can't build a new highway or bridge or road, how are you going to connect them? I don't understand that. Especially any new construction will be put at the bottom of the pile in the administrator's inbox. That's what they're saying. But going to the top of the pile, well, projects that would help electric vehicles, charging stations, renewable energy generation. But somebody's got to help me here, because my free speech hero Elon Musk and his new electric vehicles would presumably ride on new highways. But the Federal Highway Administration is not going to build a new highway because it's new and would have too many environmental problems cumulatively. At some point, somebody's going to take this new Biden executive order to the federal courts, quite possibly all the way up to the Supremes, because their new rules are a rewrite of the infrastructure law just passed in Congress. And that is not the role of regulators. Now, finally, because all the Biden lefty greenies are once again driving policy, it really makes a mockery not only of the just passed infrastructure bill, which wasn't all that great anyway, but it tells you that the Biden war against fossil fuels is alive and well. Pipelines will not pass the new review process. Infrastructure for drilling or mining projects to, let's say, extract minerals like nickel or copper or lithium to go into the batteries, all that will be stopped. And the net of all that is millions of hard hat, blue collar, and related service jobs will be lost. The middle class and those right below it will suffer enormously as a result of these radical enviros in the Biden administration. And trust me, folks, when it comes to a new project, more review areas covering more federal agencies will not reduce regulation, but it will increase it enormously. Biden's falsehoods cannot change that. But finally, you know me, here's a little good news. The cavalry is coming. That's my rep tonight.